Hello, I'm Russ Reynolds, Vice President of Sales and Strategic Partnerships with FormPiper, and we would like to welcome you to today's webinar, where we're going to be talking with Encompass Pay's Brian Price about credit card processing, fees, and their FareCharging program. So welcome, Brian. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Ross.
Awesome. So before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items I want to review, and also want to talk a little bit about FormPiper, because I know that we have some non-FormPiper customers with us today, which is awesome. So thank you for joining. So housekeeping notes, questions are definitely welcome. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but feel free to go ahead and drop any questions you have in the chat at any time, and we'll be sure to get those answered. I know, there's a lot of information here. You could forget things. And since we are going to be covering a lot of information today, we will be emailing the recording of this webinar along with some supporting documents. That way everybody has everything they need to get started with Encompass Pay. So if you are unfamiliar with FormPiper, we help retailers with their consumer financing. We help them drive revenue by streamlining the application process and giving them KPIs around their financing and their staff. That way they can take actionable next steps to make improvements. In addition, we're dedicated to driving success to our retailers by introducing new integrations, strategic partners, and various solutions to help their businesses succeed in today's competitive landscape. So now I would like to welcome one of our newer strategic partners, Encompass Pay. Brian Price is with us today to talk about navigating transparent credit card processing fees with FareCharging. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to learn more about FareCharging and what it all entails. So I think let's go ahead and just start with your background in payments and how Encompass Pay came to fruition.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ross. So I've been in the payments industry now for almost 25 years. We started Encompass Pay back in 2019 because we wanted to create a level playing field for both businesses and consumers alike when it comes to the high cost of accepting credit card payments. So we're excited to present our FareCharging solution to everyone who is joining the webinar today.
Well, thanks, Brian. We appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to learning more about FareCharging from you today. Before we dig in, FormPiper's core customers are retailers in the pet, furniture, and jewelry space. We're currently trying to expand into areas like auto repair, elective surgeries, dental, spaces like that. So for FormPiper, retail is a broad term. Are there any verticals that you guys specialize in, or any that you can't service when it comes to retail the way we see it?
Sure. No, great question. So the verticals that you mentioned that you're in and getting into are great examples of companies that can utilize FareCharging, our solution. We can literally offer the solution to any type of retail, e-commerce company, as long as they don't fall under a restricted or prohibited category for the banks for credit card processing.
All right, awesome. Well, let's go ahead. Let's dig right in. How about we start with some history about credit card processing and the legalization of surcharging?
Sure. So back in 2005, a group of businesses got together, filed a class action lawsuit against Visa and MasterCard for some antitrust practices that they were doing, and ended up, years later, winning that lawsuit. So the result was not only a large settlement to anyone who opted into the class action suit, but one of the byproducts of it was now businesses could pass a fee with credit card transactions with it, which they were never able to do before under the rules and regulations from the card brands. So originally there were 15 states that banned surcharging when it first came to pass, but fast forward to today, there's only two, and that's Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Okay, awesome. So now that we have some background on how surcharging originated and where we are today, can you walk us through the main differences between surcharging and Encompass Pay's FareCharging program?
Sure. So We never liked the term surcharging. It just has such a negative connotation to it, which is why we just branded it as fair charging. Because again, we're trying to create a level playing field for both businesses and consumers alike. So I can go through the rules of surcharging or fair charging again, as we like to call it. So uh, basically, the rules. Can you next slide? So this is here's the list of rules and regs around surcharging from not only the card brands, but there's also individual state law that comes into play, and they're complex. So the requirements are so for full disclosure to the consumer has to be notified at the time of the sale that there will be a fee added to a credit card transaction, but no fees added to debit cards, check payments, or cash. There has to be signage for retail, which we provide. If it's some transaction over the phone, it has to be verbally disclosed, and if it's online payment, the verbiage needs to be clearly stated on the checkout page. So the cap from the card from this is actually Visa's cap, but the amount cannot exceed 3% of the fair charge to the consumer. So we control that through the technology. It has to be broken out as a separate line item on the receipt, which is also covered. Again, and I'll reiterate this one because it's an important one. No fees can be added to debit cards, and that's per the Durbin Amendment that the actual law that they passed and put in place. So we know in real time if it's a credit card or a debit card and apply the fee accordingly. The next is from an education and communication standpoint. We provide businesses with the information that they can put out and get ahead of putting a program like this in place with their consumers, and why they're putting it in place, and how it's going to work, and the fairness that's involved by having a no fee option to not pay the credit card fee. And then we register with the card brands as required for our clients, and also the acquiring bank. That's another regulation that needs to be done with the card brands. And then again, like we had mentioned before, Connecticut and Massachusetts don't allow it. So if you're in those states, you can't add a fee.
Okay, great. So I think some of the key takeaways I got there are the customer has to be notified at the time of the sale. And that includes, being on the checkout page for online payments. The amount charged to the customer can't exceed 3%. And that 3% fee must be broken out as a separate line item on the receipt. And then I think one of the biggest, like you said, no fees can be added to debit cards per the Durbin Amendment.
Right.
Question about the two states that prohibit surcharging with Connecticut and Massachusetts. What if I am, shopping online and I live in Connecticut or Massachusetts, but I'm shopping for a store that operates in another state? Are they allowed to pass that charge on to me, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, great question. So the prohibited piece of Connecticut and Massachusetts is if your business entity is domiciled in one of those states and you're operating in that state, you can't add a fair charge. You can't surcharge customers. The other side of that is I'm in Pennsylvania. If I've got an online store and someone from Connecticut or Massachusetts comes on and buys something from my store, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. So it's just if the business is operating in that state, but the customers who live in that state can be passed the charge if they're purchasing something from a different business in another state.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think next we should dive into the onboarding process.
Great. So, from we know change isn't always easy, so we try to make it as simple as possible to adopt the program. Initially, we ask for 3 merchant statements. We'll provide a pretty thorough cost analysis. It typically same day or within 24 hours. We'll get that back and give you an idea of exactly what you'll be saving by switching to the program. And then once we agree and you want to move forward, it's an application process. We'll help you navigate through that. It's an e-signature. Once that gets signed and submitted, it's all automated. It goes through an underwriting process. Typically, accounts are approved same day, next day. If there's any additional information needed, we'll gather that and get that to the underwriters. But once it's approved and set up, our implementation team will set up a Zoom or teleconference and walk you through the processing piece and reporting piece, the portal, if it's online, everything that goes along with that as well. But we want you to be up, running, knowledgeable, and start processing as soon as possible to take advantage of the savings. And then if there's questions, after the fact, we've got a support team 24/7 available to support you.
Awesome. Yeah, the onboarding process does seem straightforward and simple. And that's great because, as we know, the world of retail can be extremely hectic.
Absolutely.
I have a question. So with charging 3% is good. I would love to charge 3% to customers and be compliant and legal. But on big ticket items, can that be a showstopper? I mean, how do you do with other, puppies tend to be big ticket items. It's not like a restaurant with maybe $100 or more. This could be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Furniture stores, for example, are also big ticket items. How do you fare with big ticket items and the 3%? And has that, what was the customer experience? What did the stores say? Hey, we see it's not good to do it that way. I just want to understand more about the customer with big ticket items passing on that percentage savings.
Sure. So great question. From a, you have to keep in mind that there's always, that no fee option, right? So yeah, there's a percentage fee if you're going to pay with a credit card, but you can always pay with a debit card. You can pay with ACH. You can pay with cash. And I know in a lot of these retail locations, there's also the financing piece of this as well. So we're not forcing people to pay a fee. There's, again, always no fee options. And we have businesses that have higher tickets. We have some businesses, that are still consumer businesses that are 5-digit tickets. We've got business to business clients that are doing over $100,000 tickets on credit cards and paying the fee. So it's really about how you position it with your customer base, and we can help you with that.
What kind of industry is that? That's like 5 digits and no problems. What industries is that? Can you share?
Yeah. So education is a big one, and then business to business, like wholesale distribution, which I know isn't what we're talking about today, but there can be 6-digit or more transactions through that.
Understood.
So let's go ahead and thanks for the question. Let's go ahead and I can walk you through a sample analysis and what the savings are here. So this is actually one that we prepared for a FormPiper client. We just left the name off just for privacy reasons. This business is doing about $213,000 a month in processing. Their average tickets is just over $500, and their total fees for the month were about $3,100. And we're just taking this off, their current statement. And this is why we ask for a couple, recent statements. So then we'll break it down with credit cards versus debit cards. This one just happened to be pretty even. Traditionally, it's more of a 70 to 30 credit to debit or 75-25. This one just happened to be a little more debit heavy. And then this is our fee structure. So the business is still going to pay for debit cards. Remember, we can't or not allowed to pass a fee on debit card transactions. So it's 1% and 25 cents per item for debit cards. We do charge 0.5% for credit cards. We pass a 3% fair charge onto the consumer. And the result of that, with this particular business, we were able to save them about $1,500 a month, and took their effective rate from 1.46% down to 0.69%. So first year savings right around 18,000, and you can multiply it out from there, but it's pretty significant savings. And the one thing that I'll end on and add here is just to reiterate, the debit to credit card ratio here was almost even. When it's more along the lines of traditional ratio, more credit cards to debit cards, the savings is even greater. So
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, $18,000 a year in savings. There's a lot that businesses can do with that money. Put it back into the business, obviously, or maybe take a nice vacation. So,
absolutely.
as I mentioned earlier, FormPiper, we're always dedicated to bringing added value to our customers. And Encompass Pay is a really great product for our customers to consider. So in addition to saving retailers money on processing fees and providing a fair program for retailers and consumers, FormPiper customers will receive some extra perks by signing up with Encompass Pay. Brian, you want to walk us through those?
Sure. So, we're thrilled to be partnering with FormPiper. So in addition to, we saving with this program, saving up to 90% off, your current processing fees. There's zero upfront fees for the program. So it doesn't cost anything to sign up for it. A feature that's coming, and FormPiper's working on this, is an integration to our platform. So if you are processing through us, and using FormPiper, you're gonna get data from your processing through that portal, the FormPiper portal as well. So another great feature. And then lastly, we went back and forth, and we wanted to give something else back to as an incentive to sign up for the program. So what we decided on was up to a 3% rebate or incentive bonus when you sign up, and that's 3% of your average monthly volume. So if it's $100,000 a month in processing, we'll actually rebate back $3,000 or up to $3,000, and that happens once you sign up, once you start processing over those first 3 months in equal installments.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I mean, we really appreciate that perk for our customers, and we really appreciate this partnership. I think next thing to know is, how would customers get started with Encompass Pay?
Yeah, so again, trying to keep it as simple as possible. So, after we do the cost analysis, we have a pre-application form URL. You simply go on there, fill out the information, submit it, and you'll get an application emailed to you, ready for e-signature. Once that's signed and submitted, it starts the process. Typically with retail accounts, again, it's a lot of times if it meets a certain threshold with underwriting, it's automatically approved. But typically it's going to be same day, next day approvals. So we'll have you up and running, within a week of submitting the application.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to drop those URLs in the chat right now so everybody can have them. And this all seems, really turnkey. I do have a question for you though. Is there a long-term contract with Encompass Pay, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So the answer is no. We don't have a long-term contract, and we don't have any cancellation fees or penalties if you stop processing, uh, like a lot of other processors do out there. So, yeah, month to month, no penalty to cancel if for whatever reason you're not happy with the service.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it says a lot about a company, when they stand behind their product and service like that with no long-term contract. And we appreciate the flexibility and for the added benefit of the sign-up rebate for our customers. So, Brian, I really want to thank you again for being with us today. This session has been very informative. And I think now we should just go ahead and open up the floor to some more questions. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead, either drop those in the chat or, unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, I just have one more question for you guys, okay? What kind of gear do we get when we sign up? Like, what kind of terminals?
So we have a couple different options for terminals. We've got PAX, we've got Deja Vu, both work with our technology. So if you have equipment, depending on what it is, we possibly can reprogram it. But if you need new equipment, there's, and I'm sure this question's probably going to be asked, so I'll go ahead and answer it. There's no charge for the equipment. And if you bought the equipment before, it's not cheap. So that's another perk with the FormPiper partnership with Encompass Pay.
That really is a big value add, and if you use a credit card, it'll automatically put the 3% on the receipt, or we have to manually add that item.
No, that's a great question. That's part of the beauty of our technology is, we want compliance through technology. So we don't, you've got enough to worry about with your business and everything that goes with that. You don't need to worry about if it's a debit card or a credit card. Our technology knows in real time, and we apply the fee accordingly. And all the reporting that you get, breaks it down, with the fair charge as well. So, you'll get full reporting on it on the back end.
Thank you for answering the questions. Thanks.
Sure.
I have a couple questions. I know that will definitely come up, or some that my customers have asked. Are there minimums in terms of number of transactions, or credit card transaction volume that you have to qualify for Encompass Pay?
No, I mean, look, we want, obviously we're a processor, so we want volume, but we don't put minimums on our customers, businesses for processing.
Okay, that's awesome. And then could you elaborate a little bit more on training and implementation? I know it's really turnkey, but I think the training component is going to be, really good for our customers.
Yeah, so we have staff that's what they do. We have an implementation team that all day long that they're talking to new merchants, walking them through, if it's a terminal, how does the terminal work? If they have a website where they need online processing, we're working with them to hook the gateway up with them or their website developer. But it's a very thorough process. And again, we're not just going to set you up and you're gone. You've got full support to be able to call in and get any questions answered that you need.
That's great. Any more questions? Let's see.
Yeah, I got
Those
one.
are all. You have one? Perfect.
Yeah. Apologize if I missed this earlier. I got on a little bit late, but so from the turnkey aspect, these are standalone terminals, or do they integrate in with your point of sale system?
Yeah, good question. So, yes, we're talking about our standalone. We do have open API specs. So, And we love integration. So if there's a software out there that we can integrate to, again, there's not a cost involved in that. We're open to integration. So we just need to, know what it is. And, if we can, it's not all on us. It's, the software company as well. So if they're willing to integrate, we'll do it all day long. If they're not willing to integrate, we do a lot of, you put a standalone terminal in place and you tender it through the POS and run the sale through the standalone terminal.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So the second part of that question would be PCI requirements is starting to become more of a pain about all the time. So I know some of that, it kind of varies on what your expectations are, whether or not your term. I want to know if, I guess it was either end-to-end encryption as opposed to point-to-point, and then all the scanning and all that fun stuff. What, you guys have a program that takes care of that, or how does it on your end?
Yeah, so all the equipment that we use, and our platform is all PCI level 1 compliant. So, obviously we don't want any of our clients or businesses storing any credit card information, full credit card information. That those days are long gone. From a PCI perspective, you're going to have to do, your due diligence on your side. But that is one thing that we offer that a lot of companies don't, is we'll actually help you with that, and make sure that you're doing your quarterlies and, you're up to spec on PCI. And,
okay.
and all the transactions are encrypted. It's all tokenized. I know that was the second part of your question.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Those are great questions. Any more questions? All right. Well, if there are no more questions, I just want to give a quick recap. Today, we talked about credit card processing fees and Encompass Pay's FareCharging and the value and benefits their program brings to retailers. We're really excited to have shared this opportunity with our attendees today. And getting started with Encompass Pay is really easy. We dropped the URL in the chat. FormPiper customers, you can also access the link in the value added partner section inside of FormPiper. And as a reminder, we are going to be sending out this recording along with some supporting documentation, just so that everybody has everything they need to get started or to do a cost savings analysis. We highly encourage everybody to do that cost savings analysis because it's free. And I think you will be surprised by the savings estimate. And then also do not forget about that sign up rebate and reporting integration and development. Brian, do you have any parting words for us?
I just want to say thanks. How much we appreciate the partnership with FormPiper and the opportunity to bring this to your customer base. We're excited about it. We're here to answer any questions, and of course, walk you through getting signed up, and starting to save.
Guys, I had one last question about the fees.
Yeah.
So it's 3.5% if we pass the fair charge to them. If we don't pass the fair charge to them, right? How much is it to the merchant?
So I guess let me clarify. So if you're not surcharging or fair charging, you want like traditional processing where you're paying all of the fees?
Well, let's say it's going to be a point of contention, right? So if we have to do that, what would I pay basically?
Yeah, so we could include a traditional quote, but we would need to see the processing and what that looks like in order to do that. Yeah, it's a lot easier for us on the fair charging side to put the quote together because we're cutting most of the fees out, so it's a pretty simple process. It's not as easy when you're doing it from a traditional side.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, appreciate that. And then Brian, we appreciate this partnership. Thank you again for joining us today. If you're not a FormPiper customer, please connect with me so we can get that conversation started. But if you have any questions about Encompass Pay, please feel free to reach out to your FormPiper representative. And of course, Brian's available to speak with you directly. Our contact information is right here on this slide and will be included in the follow-up. We hope everybody has a great afternoon, and thank you again for joining us.